Welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So, you know what time it is. It's that time to talk about my top 10 favorite movies of 2023. I know the title says best movies of 2023, but that's for the YouTube algorithm. These are my favorite movies of the year, and I feel like I just gotta say that because my list, I'm sure, are probably going to be different than a lot of yours out there, and that is totally okay. These aren't necessarily the best movies of the year. These are just the ones that for me personally, I got the most enjoyment out of, that I thought were the best. So I definitely want to hear you guys' list. So make sure in the comments down below, you let me know what your favorite movies of the year are. I'm also going to be throwing in some honorable mentions. So we're going to start the video off with that. But yeah, I just can't believe we're at the end of the year, about to be 2024. I feel like once we get to September, the rest of the year just flies by, man, and I'm getting old, and yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick these things off with some honorable mentions. And the only other thing I want to say too, I have not had a chance to see American Fiction. I really wanted to see it, but it is not playing. I think it's like the closest one that is like over an hour away from me. And I looked for showings, like even for the next week or whatever, and it just doesn't seem to be playing near me. So hopefully, maybe I'll make a trip and go watch it, at one of these places. I really don't want to go into like the areas where it's playing if I can help it. So I'll see that eventually, but I wanted to do this video. And I also haven't had a chance to see The Color Purple. So two films that came out at the end of the year. I'm going to see them, but I wanted to get this video out for you guys before it's the new year. Because I also got to do my most anticipated of 2024. But yes, without further ado, without me rambling on about anything else, let's go ahead and talk about my honorable mentions for 2023. The first one I'm going to mention is Air. This was in my top 10 for a while for the year. And like I said, honestly, it could very well, maybe next week it could go right back in there. But it's just outside the top 10 for me. I like the other top 10 maybe a little bit more. But I absolutely love this movie. I'm one of those type of people, you guys know me, if you watch like my interviews when I talk to guests, I love the behind the scenes stories of films and how different things were made. So kind of getting to see that behind the scenes story of creating the shoe and signing Jordan and stuff like that, I just found that really fascinating. I thought all the performances were great, and it felt like it was taken right out of that time period. So I really enjoyed Air. My next one on my honorable mentions is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And this, again, was in my top 10 for most of the year. I am just a sucker when it comes for coming of age type of movies. And I feel like everyone can, find something to relate to in this movie. Everyone's a kid at some point, goes through some of these kind of weird situations in life. And just the cast was amazing here. Again, the time period, it felt like it was really taken out of that time. And it's just a movie that I feel like has a lot of rewatchability. Just felt like really, warm and inviting. And I enjoyed the hell out of this. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely make sure to check it out. I own it on Blu-ray. For my next pick, we have Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage. Again, I wanted to put this in my top 10. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Nick Cage fan, but I enjoyed the hell out of this. I just found it really interesting. What would happen? Put yourself in this guy's shoes. Like if all of a sudden one day everyone in the world just seemed to be dreaming about you, you were on the top of the world, and then the next thing you know, people are having nightmares about you and that situation just completely flips. What would you do? So that's how I kind of the lens that I watched this movie from. I thought it was, for me, at least in recent memory, one of Nicolas Cage's best performances. Again, really, really enjoyed this film. If you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. The next movie I'm going to talk about on my honorable mentions list is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. The guy is a legend, and this film is just incredible. Great performances from our lead characters here. Everything just looked amazing in the film. Definitely at times a little hard to watch just what happened to all of these people. But I also think a very important story to tell as well. The only thing, it's about like 3.5 hours long, so it's a little on the long side. But would have been kind of hard to cut out certain things like in the film, I feel like. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check this out, you know, it is now streaming, so you guys can watch it online if you didn't want to make the trek to the theaters. But yeah, it didn't quite make my top 10, but I definitely had to include it in my honorable mentions for sure. This next one, oh man, honestly, like I said, this could change for me. You know, a couple of these maybe could switch in there. But my next one's going to be Godzilla Minus One. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, are you kidding me? This isn't in your top 10? It is very freaking close, man. You know, I like Godzilla movies. I grew up watching some of the Godzilla movies. I went to Blockbuster and watched a lot of those, you know, the older like films. You know, I loved Godzilla growing up. I haven't been as big of a fan of some of the recent Godzilla films, the American ones. You know, just, it is cool to see Godzilla, but you don't give a shit about the human characters or anything that they do. And I know, granted, that's probably not really what we go to when we see some of these films. But that is not the case with Godzilla Minus One. I wasn't sure if I was going to see this initially, but I am so glad that I went and checked it out because this film was incredible. Not only does Godzilla look great for the budget that this film is on, but I mean, the human characters, the story, I was actually really invested what was happening with them. And Godzilla actually at times, while I wasn't like terrified, I didn't have nightmares or anything like that, I thought they actually made Godzilla kind of scary. The shots when you see the boat in the water and you see his face popping up, I was like, if I was in that situation, I would be absolutely terrified. So, an incredible film. I guess they're doing a black and white version that I definitely want to check out if they release it here in the US. But yeah, amazing movie, guys. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely make sure you go and check it out. I believe it's still playing in theaters. And again, so close to being in my top 10. I love the movie. I'll definitely be picking it up when it comes out, like on Blu-ray 4K. My last one that I want to throw in there for an honorable mention, and I feel like this might be kind of controversial because I feel like the reception to this film was a little mixed, but that is going to be Hulu's No One Will Save You. I really enjoyed this movie. I know a lot of people didn't like the aspect where it was like basically a dialogue-less film, but I thought the alien design, I love that they kind of went with the classic look for the aliens. I really enjoyed our performance from our main actress here. I thought she did a great job. And yeah, I thought this was it was exactly what I was hoping for. Granted, I didn't know it was a dialogueless film, but as far as just kind of a throwback to a classic alien movie, I really dug that. But again, I know a lot of people might not necessarily appreciate it or just didn't, you know, enjoy it as much as I did. So that's why I'm saying this might be a little controversial for a pick. But I really liked it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, like we did with Prey, I'm hoping that we get a physical media release of this film, because I definitely want to add it to my collection. Alright guys, without further ado, we are now going to get into my top 10 favorite movies of the year, and like I said, it was really hard to narrow this down to 10. That's why I had to do a bunch of honorable mentions, because even though I feel like it wasn't like the best year for movies, there was still like a solid 15, 20 movies that I really enjoyed, and so getting it down to 10 is always tough. But as far as number 10 goes, that is going to be Bottoms. So Bottoms, I saw this in theaters, and honestly guys, we just don't get enough comedies nowadays. I feel like a lot of people or a lot of these studios, they're afraid to offend people with some of their comedies, like what they used to put out in like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And to me, this just kind of felt like a throwback to some of those teen comedies where some of the stuff in this movie, I was actually kind of surprised was in there. And I haven't laughed as hard at a movie. It's been a while since I've laughed this hard, guys. Like, I was actually crying. And the theater that I saw it with, pretty much everyone else was doing the same thing. I really hope this gets a release on physical media. I haven't seen it yet, and it was released, it was like August, July, or something like that. But man, if you guys haven't seen this film, Marshawn Lynch plays a teacher in here. And I don't know, like maybe it was just my style of comedy, but I was cracking up throughout the movie. So definitely check this one out if you're looking for a new comedy. At number 9, we have Talk to Me. One of my favorite horror films of the year. We've gotten so many possession, ghost type of movies over the years, and I felt like this was a fresh take on that genre. And there was legit some stuff in here that actually made me wince a couple times, especially if you guys have seen the film. You know the scene that I'm talking about, someone's face meeting a table? Yeah, I was like, holy shit. And just some of the other scenes, there was actually some stuff in here that legit creeped me out. So definitely one of my favorite horror movies of the year. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, definitely recommend you guys do. And it was made by some YouTubers, Raka Raka. So I think that is really cool as well. So talk to me. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you guys pick it up. At number 8, we have Eileen, which is a movie I just saw not too long ago. I have a review up for it on my channel if you guys want to check out, more in-depth thoughts on the movie. But it's a 60s Hitchcock-inspired thriller, also kind of a character study on our main lead in the film, played by Thomasin McKenzie. We also have Anne Hathaway in the film. And man, just everything from the way that this film looked, to the way that, the performances from both of our characters. In my review, I kind of mentioned that it feels warm and inviting at times, the way that it looks, just like that, kind of film grain. But there is some dark and disturbing stuff in this movie as well. So I love this film. I feel like it might be a little controversial. I don't know how many top 10s this movie is going to end up on, but I really enjoyed it. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out, because it came out towards the end of the year, and I don't think it was a really wide release, I definitely suggest you guys, give this one a chance. At number 7, we have The Holdovers. I didn't get a chance to do a full review for this on my channel, but man, this movie, even though there is some stuff in here that just sad as shit, overall though, the movie, it just has a really warm feeling. Something that I could see myself watching around the holidays every year. I feel like this is destined to become, a classic for sure. Paul Giamatti, I thought he was amazing in the film. Everyone pretty much in this movie I thought was great. The way the movie looked. Takes place in the 70s in New England. It just felt like one of those throwback movies that you discover going through your collection that you kind of forgot about, a hidden gem or something from the 70s, 80s. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check out The Holdovers, it's about a group of people that kind of get left behind at this boarding school. They end up, they're kind of just complete opposites of each other, but they end up, forming these bonds together. And it is an amazing movie. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely check that one out. At number 6, we have The Iron Claw. I want to still get a full review up for this movie, but I just saw this right before Christmas. Again, it was a really late release, but I had to have this on my list because, man, this movie was, wow, hit me right in the gut. Especially the end of the film. I'm not going to go into details, I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, but there is a line by one of the characters. And God, that just completely hit me like a ton of bricks. And my buddies too that we went to go see it, we're just like, all right, well, yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. So it's a great movie. If you guys, know about, if you're fans of wrestling, I definitely suggest you guys checking this out. But even if you're not, I think that it's a very interesting story, a very sad story based off the Von Erich family and what happened to them, the tragedy that happened to them. And I think this honestly is probably my favorite performance from Zac Efron. But all the other guys that played the brothers too, I thought they all gave top-notch performances. So that's why this made my top 10 favorite movies of the year of 2023. At number 5, we have Elemental. Man, I just absolutely adored this movie. And I was so worried when it came out because it had a really poor opening weekend. And I was like, oh, come on. But word of mouth got out about this film, and it ended up having a pretty, successful box office, or at least a lot better than it was going to do initially. And I'm so happy for this film because from the first teaser that we got, just with the animation, the colors that we see in the trailer, I was like, it was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I was happy that it didn't disappoint. Just taking people from two different backgrounds and how they can come together, a story of immigration. And, I'm just so happy to see that it's getting the love that I think that it really deserves. Great performances as far as the voice actors go, bringing those characters to life. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's probably one of my favorite animated movies of recent memory for sure. But speaking of animated movies, at number 4, we have Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. This continues the adventures of Miles Morales, picking up where after the first film had left off. And, you know, as far as the animation goes, like, there was moments in this movie watching this in theaters that I was sitting there just going, how did they even do this? How did they... There's just so much going on in this film as far as the animation goes. It just blew my mind. And I mean, you really invested in the characters as far as their stories go. You get a little bit more Gwen in this movie, which I really enjoyed. And man, if Part 3 is as good as these past two, it's definitely going to be up there for, you know, as far as like superhero trilogies for me, definitely up there. But I mean, overall, just as far as movie trilogies go, I think this could be up there if they land it with Part 3. That's how good this movie is. So again, if you guys haven't seen this, if you haven't seen either of the Spider-Verse movies, I can't recommend them enough. Just, you know, as far as like an appreciation, the artistic level, what went into making these movies is incredible. All right, and at number 3, and I know I'm gonna have people probably in the comments giving me shit for this because there's gonna be the like, are you kidding me? How do you have this higher than some of the other films in your lists? Or why is this even on your list to begin with? Number 3 is gonna be Scream 6. And you know what, guys? If you guys watch this channel, if you're a subscriber, you know how much I love the Scream franchise. The original Scream is arguably my favorite movie of all time. I've seen that movie so many times. I love this franchise. Are all the movies perfect? No. Is Scream 6 perfect? No. There's definitely some characters that should have died in the film, the plot armor and things like that. For sure. But I just had such a fun time at the theater seeing this. Every time that I went to go see it, and I saw it several times in theaters, I just had such a fun time. For me, it's just a very rewatchable movie. It kind of sucks, you know, where the franchise is at now with everything that's happening. But man, if they had to go out and this was the last film for this, at least this main cast, they at least ended it on a high note as far as like my opinion goes. And again, I know some of you guys might shit on my opinion as far as liking this movie, but I enjoyed the hell out of Scream 6. So as far as number 2 on my list goes, that is going to be Poor Things, another movie that I just recently saw. But holy shit, guys. Watching this movie, I was like, yes, I knew this, not even being finished with the film, I knew that this was going to end up on my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Emma Stone is absolutely incredible. What a breathtaking performance from her. I really hope that she wins her second Oscar. I think that she deserves it with the performance that she gives as Bella in this film. But honestly, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, everyone is great here, and just the world that is created with Poor Things, I thought it was just a visual feast as well. I can't wait to check this one out again. It's definitely going to be something that I'm adding to my collection, and that's why it made my number 2. And all right, guys, we have made it to my favorite movie of 2023. If you guys know me, you might have an idea of what that movie is. Number 1 is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So a little bit of background for me with this franchise. Ever since the first film came out in theaters, I didn't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy when the first film was getting ready to come out. Like a lot of people, I feel like around the world. But that first film came out. I remember seeing it for the first time in theaters, and I just absolutely fell in love with these characters. I fell in love with this world. I ended up seeing this film 5, 6, maybe even 7 times, I want to say, like in theaters itself. And I've seen it a bunch of times, the original one, afterwards. I really enjoyed the second one. It wasn't quite as good as the first film, but I still really enjoyed it. And so going into number 3, this was going to be the last film with at least this main cast of Guardians together. I was a little nervous because of how much I enjoyed this franchise so far, and these characters. It's always tough, I feel like, to do a trilogy and to wrap everyone's stories up in a satisfying way. And so I was a little nervous that I was going to be frustrated with how things ended, or maybe certain characters being killed off or whatever. But I thought James Gunn did an amazing job wrapping this story up for these characters and for this world, and obviously leaves the door open if anyone else wanted to take this franchise on and run with it in the future. But yeah, I mean, I laughed, I cried, there were some badass scenes in the film, and it was an amazing, theater experience for me. So that's why this is my top movie of the year. I've seen this a number of times as well, but that's why, just because this film, and in each film has kind of come out when it's come out in that year, has been kind of a significant moment in my life, and so that it just adds like a little bit extra why these movies mean so much to me. And I've always I feel like I always appreciate kind of those outside characters too, the characters that are maybe a little weird, not necessarily super mainstream. I mean, now the Guardians are, but I've really appreciated those types of characters, and so these guys just mean a lot to me, and that's why it's my favorite movie of 2023. But yeah, I want to hear what your guys' favorite movies of the years are, because one, it's always interesting to see how everyone's lists kind of stack up with each other, but two, sometimes there are movies that maybe I never heard of or never got a chance to see that are on your list, and I always appreciate that, because then I can go check out some new movies that I might not have ever heard of before or didn't get a chance to see. So definitely let me know your list down below in the comments, and then also if you have like honorable mentions or, different things like that as well. I'm going to be doing my most anticipated movies of 2024, so if you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. If you guys can, give this video a thumbs up. And again, I just want to say thank all of you so much for, if you're a subscriber, thank you for being on this journey. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. Thank you for an incredible year. I can't wait to see what 2024 brings. I hope you guys have a happy new year. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.